Good morning, everyone. It's Robert from On My Turntable. Hope you're having a great morning this morning. It is Sunday morning, as always, a coffee kind of morning. Time change messing you up a little bit. Um, yeah, I don't like the time changes. But anyway, I'm here today to do something that wasn't an easy task, but I felt I needed to do it. It's the ranking of the 12 Byrds studio albums. The only introduction I had to the Byrds up until that point was this greatest hits album, which is really, really good. It's on the Columbia label. You got Mr. Tambourine Man, I Feel a Whole Lot Better, The Bells of Remney, Turn, 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 and so on and so forth. 8 Miles High is on here. So You Want to Be a Rock and Roll Star, My Back Pages. Really, really good stuff. But that was the only album I had of the Byrds. So now I have all 12 studio albums, thanks to this great box that I picked up not too long ago, featuring 11 of their studio albums, and I've got their last album on vinyl. Difficult in the fact that I was also really getting into the Revolver remix, and I had to separate the two sounds because they're completely different sounds. I was really getting into the remix as well as this box set, but two different styles of music. So you can't just listen to one and go right into the other. You've got to take some time to separate the two because completely different styles. Again, the only country that the Beatles had was a couple of tracks that Ringo did, where the Byrds is more of a country rock, one of the original country rock bands. So there's a lot of country styles in here, and great harmonization, psychedelic rock. Again, two fantastic bands, but I just couldn't listen to both of them at the same time. So I'm going to try and do this as quickly as possible. I'm already 2 minutes into this. I want to keep it as short as possible, but it may be difficult to do so. So the Byrds, American rock band from LA, formed in 1964. Multiple lineup changes throughout their career. Roger McGuinn, or Jim McGuinn as he was known earlier, the only original member in the band. Even though they had 12 studio albums and released 12 studio albums, they were one of the most influential bands of that time. Amazing harmonies, that famous 12-string jangly guitar sound that they were known for earlier in their stuff. Rock and pop and folk rock, psychedelic rock, again, the earlier pioneers of country rock. Some bands that formed out of the Byrds were the Flying Burrito Brothers, Crosby, Stills, Nash Young, Firefall, McGuinn, Clark, and Hillman, and the Desert Road Band, just to name a few. So without Crosby, without the Byrds, none of these bands may have not existed. They were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1991. Again, this is my ranking. It may differ than yours, and that's cool. Everyone listens to things differently, and my ranking could change just like anything does on a daily basis. But this is what I got so far, and don't criticize me for it. So at number 12, this is their 11th studio album, Further Along. Okay. Decent album, but it only reached 152 on the 200 charts. It was really rushed, I feel. No jangled guitars, different vocal styles as well on this one. Roger McGuinn is the only original member on the album. Bugler is the only really good song on this one. It's a weird song title though, Bugler. Again, decent sounding album, but it's not the Byrds style. But that's number 12, is Further Along. At number 11, again, this is the only vinyl I have other than the Greatest Hits album. This is a reunion album of the Byrds. So simply titled. Okay, with 5 original members. They came back for the album. I have this at number 11, 1973 release. 5 original members, as I said. Roger McGuinn, Gene Clark, David Crosby, Chris Hillman, and Michael Clark. The last time all those guys worked together was in 1966. You got Full Circle. Things will get better. They do a cover of Neil Young's Cowgirl in the Sand, which I prefer Neil Young's version completely. Um, Sweet Mary is awesome. But I feel because they're all working on different projects, maybe they didn't bring their best work to the album. But because it could have been 10 times better. But still, overall, decent album. I got to get a better cover though. It's a little rough, but decent album. Speaking of covers, this is probably one of the weirdest covers I've seen in a while, and it doesn't really fit the Byrds, in my opinion, anyway. This is number 10, Bird Maniacs. That's what's weird. Just weird. But again, a decent sounding album. 1971 release. The 10th album, ironically, ranking at number 10. You got a lineup of Roger McGuinn, amazing guitar work of Clarence White, who saved so many of these albums. He's just a fantastic, underrated guitarist, Clarence White. Gene Parsons and Skip Batton. Critics were pretty harsh on this one, but overall, I feel it's a pretty good album. And again, they were touring pretty heavily. Maybe they didn't put their best effort into the work, but it still hit number 46 on the charts. Glory, Glory is a highlight. I Trust Everything is going to work out. What was different about this one is they added, without their knowledge, without the band's knowledge, they added strings and horns, and the production company, I'm sorry, not the band. They added strings and horns and gospel choirs to the band, and the band didn't know that until the album was released. So it again takes away from that sound of the Byrds, but it kind of I kind of like it. I kind of like it. I kind of like those. So maybe it was a God blessing that they did that, but I feel it's a pretty decent album. At number 10. At number 9, The Ballad of Easy Rider. Okay. 1969 release. The 8th album by the Byrds, with the title track of the same name, written by Bob Dylan and Roger McGuinn. And also the theme song for the film Easy Rider, which they were hoping that the success of the film would bring success to the album. But really, most of the tracks on the album don't really apply to the movie. They were just hoping for that one track, and it worked. It gave them some success for a couple of years on this one. Again, Clarence White saves this one as well with some fantastic guitar worker. They do a version of Jesus Is Just All Right, which is okay. I kind of prefer the Doobie Brothers version on there, but it's a pretty cool track. Gunga Din is great. I really like that one, and Oil in My Lamp is a highlight as well. So that's number 9. At number 8, I'm going to go to their debut album, Mr. Tambourine Man. Okay, fantastic album. And the only reason I ranked it high, because they're still discovering their sound. They do a lot of covers on this one. I've always said if it wasn't for Bob Dylan, the Byrds may not be around, because they do a ton of Dylan covers. 1965 release. But the thing is, their Dylan covers are better than Dylan versions, which I guess that's a kudos to the band on how well they do the covers. Amazing amazing harmonic album. You got that signature 12-string sound that we all know and love. Mr. Tambourine Man established a band as kind of the answer to the Beatles and all the other British invasion bands coming on, even though their style was completely different. It was America's version, I guess, because the crowds loved them. They you know, they had that unique sound, that jangly guitar sound. That kind of the Beatles did as well in their earlier stuff. But a great inventive album. Like they were just not hitting their stride yet, but they were discovering who they were and everything else. And it's a great, great album. So I ranked it a little high, but a little, when I say high, I mean up in the ranking, but still a decent album. At number 7, Dr. Byrds and Mr. Hyde. Some of these album titles are just weird. But another great album. 1969 release, in the 7th. Mixture of country rock and psychedelic rock. Hence, Dr. Byrds and Mr. Hyde. You know, two different, that famous movie. You know, two different personalities. This is kind of the same, only music with country rock and psychedelic rock blending together. New lineup. Of course, you still have Clarence White on guitar. Amazing stuff. Gene Parsons on drum. No relationship to Graham Parsons. John York on bass and Roger McGuinn on guitar. McGuinn sings lead on all these tracks, which is different as well. It's one of the lowest charting albums by the band, but I still like this album. I still like it. I think it's something that sounds really good, unique. It's a smooth sounding album. Well, it sounds weird. It's a smooth transition. It's not jangly. It's not. It's just a smooth sounding album. And This Wheel's on Fire, Dylan track, Old Blue, Nashville West. Just a couple of highlights on here, but yeah, decent album. Just a weird title, but I understand the title now once you get into the music. At number 6, great album. This is Untitled. It's a double album, part live, part studio. I prefer the live stuff over the studio, even though the studio stuff is pretty good. 9th album by the band. Americana at its best. Again, with the first disc, side 1 and 2, live tracks, and the second 3 and 4 studio tracks. Skip Benton is on bass, replacing John York. Live tracks and feature Mr. Tambourine Man, Mr. Spaceman, 8 Miles High, which is a 16-minute version of that great track. Side 3 and 4, you got 4 McGuinn tunes, Chestnut Mare, all the things, Just a Season, Hungry Planet. Truck Stop Girl is another great track. Take a Whiff on Me is really good stuff. A weird song title, but great track. And I love the live stuff. These guys are really good live. That's at number 6. At number 5, top 5, here we go. Younger Than Yesterday. These guys are just working on 10 cylinders right now. 1967 release, 4th album by the band. Combination of psychedelic rock, some jazz rock in there as well. You got reverse tape effects. You've got the brass instruments in there. The bass is really highlighted as well on this one. You got some raga rock as well, which is kind of an Indian influenced type of sound, which is really cool. Of course, the Beatles were doing that as well. Short album. It's only 29 minutes long, but you got a big hit, so you want to be a rock and roll star, which is one of my favorites by the Byrds. My Back Pages, Have You Seen Her Face? Bass player Chris Hillman steps up and becomes a singer-songwriter on this one. Have You Seen Her Face? Time Between Thoughts and Words. The Girl with No Name. He's such an amazing artist. He really is. Again, short-lived in the band, unfortunately, as he came and went in a couple of times, but it's too bad. This is a complete shift to the band. This is where the country rock name comes from, maybe. Pardon me. This is number 4, Sweetheart of the Rodeo. The first and only album featuring Graham Parsons, who is just remarkable. What an artist he was. Again, 1968 released the sixth album by the band, introducing Graham Parsons to the Byrds. But it's way too country for me. But at the same time, I have to respect the talent of Graham Parsons. He's just remarkable. Excuse me. Again, one of the first albums to be considered country rock, and it was huge. It was huge. They really dove deep into country on this one, and they got away with the psychedelic rock and the pop sound, and it works, if that makes sense. Even though I love old country, so I should love this album, and I kind of do. I ranked it pretty high, as you can see, but it's amazing. If you just listen to Graham Parsons' work and how he sings and performs, it's just remarkable stuff. So I hope I'm not contradicting myself. But what they were trying to do is bring country music to a younger audience, I think. You ain't going nowhere. I'm a pilgrim. You don't want Pretty Boy Floyd, and then they do a track of Dylan's "Nothing Was Delivered," and what else is there? "You Don't Miss Your Water." Again, that's really weird song title on that one, but fantastic album. It really is. So again, I'm hoping I'm not contradicting myself. And then at number 3, this is Fifth Dimension. Fantastic album, Fifth Dimension. Their third album, 1966 release. Gene Clark had left the band at this point. He was only on the first 2 albums until he came back later. So Roger McGuinn and David Crosby had to step it up and increase their songwriting talent, which they did. For 1966, this album sounds amazing. It's hard to believe that this album was made in 1966. Combination of folk rock, psychedelic rock, raga rock again. You got 8 Miles High, 5D, Fifth Dimension, Mr. Spaceman. A decent version of Hey Joe. I prefer, obviously, Jimi Hendrix version, but John Riley's on here as well. But really good stuff. That's at number 3. At number 2, their second album, which is amazing, Turn. Okay. Better than their first, if I can say that. 1965 release. More polished than their first one, for sure. But they're still working on discovering themselves and who they are and what they are as a band. Amazing harmonies. That jangly guitar sound continues. You got Turn, which is just a remarkable track. Set You Free This Time. It Won't Be Long. David Crosby got his first songwriting credit on this one on Wait and See. They'd only do two Dylan covers on this one. If You're Gone and The World Turns Around. And The World Turns Around. Sorry, I'm getting mixed. They do 2 Dylan covers, but they do. Gene Clark does 2 tracks on his one. I apologize, I got that messed up. If You're Gone and The World Turns Around. It's amazing album. Super fine album. And at number 1, you've got the notorious Byrd Brothers. What a remarkable album this one is. The 5th album by the band, 1968 release. They found their sound. Although not perfect, it's a pretty darn good album. They blend psychedelic and folk and country all together. You got pop and jangle rock on this one, jazz, some jazz elements on here, some pedal steel guitar, Moog synthesizers. What do you want? David Crosby was fired during this one, and Michael Clark left, but they brought Gene Clark back, which enhanced the album tenfold. They really did. Although he would leave 3 weeks later. Go figure. They do a couple of Carol King covers, which are amazing. Going back and Wasn't Born to Follow. You got Artificial Energy and Space Odyssey on here as well. But fantastic, fantastic stuff. So there you have it, guys. There's my top 12 Byrds albums. Hope you enjoyed. Let me know below your rankings of these amazing albums. Have yourself a great rest of the day. Love you all. We'll talk to you again soon. Bye now.